This is the second part of our video series where we're looking at developing a vessel or tank inventory solution. And what I've got on the screen is where we left off on video 1. So we have our level reading coming in percent. So what we want to try and do is trying to emulate the values that we've got on our mobile phone app as much as we can, and then push them into global memory so we can use them at a later date to pull in to a JSON message that we can then push off to something like InfluxDB or even to the Azure cloud via IoT Hub. So we already have some scaling for percent, which is nice and easy to be able to do, but we want to have a couple of other values. So you can see here we're connected to the app. We want to know how much liquid is or material is in this silo. And so this is for our inventory management. So if I scroll down, what we need to tell the radar is what 0 milliamps equals and what 20 milliamps equals, because it doesn't really know until you tell it. So for this application we're measuring liquid level. So when the vessel is empty, we'll be down here at 3 meters. So this is what we call a lower calibration point, or sometimes the empty distance, and the upper calibration is 0. So this is a little bit difficult to understand when you're new to this, but once you've got this program, because you're measuring level, when the vessel is empty, the radar will be reading 0 because the vessel is at 0%, and that will be 4 milliamps. And when the vessel is full, it will go to its full level, which is 3 meters, which is 100%, which is 20 milliamps. We need this 0 to 3 meter scaling to be programmed into our Node-RED program. So you can see on the screen here, I already have percent, so we can Control C and Control V. We can link that to our 4 to 20, so the output of this is always 4 to 20. I'll come on to failsafe signals later on. And we can see here from 4 to 20, we're never going to change that, but instead of 0 to 100, we're going to change that to, we can change it to 3.0. Don't tick this round to the nearest integer. That we want at least one decimal place. If you tick that, you'll get rid of your decimal places. So done, and then we will put a debug on here, and then we can copy both of these now and put them in. So this is the range node, which is down here. You can see the symbol. We'll link this in. Now distance is the opposite to level. So that is going to be how far away the liquid is from the transducer face of the radar down to the liquid level. And so we can just flip these round, and that will get us reading distance. So if we deploy that, we're going to now just look at our, I'll clear this, we're going to look at our percent, and the process values are at the bottom of the screen. So I now have, I forgot to change the label on these, by the way, which I will do after. So this middle one here is level 2.1, and my level is 2.2, so 2.19. Okay, so now let's turn that one off, bring my phone screen back up, and I can see my distance is 0.7921, and I've got 0.8. And that's the inaccuracy on my milliamp scaling because I haven't calibrated it or anything. So we now have 3 values that are representing exactly what we've got here on our phone app. Of course it's not as accurate because these are digital, and we're going, on our application we're going digital to analog, analog to digital. So what we need to do next is push these into a global memory area, and then we'll look at creating a little dashboard. So now we have our values scaled, they're not really doing anything other than go into these debugs. But if we wanted to use these values on other flows, we'd be restricted to, so they can only be linked. Now we can link them across, but the easiest thing to do is to push these values into global memory. So that's what we're going to do. So there is 4 values. We have the 4 to 20 coming from here. I don't have to range this because it's already ranged within this block. So we're going to take these 4 values and push them into memory. So to do that, we use the change node. We're going to set the global and we're going to do memory only, and the value that we're going to put in here is going to be called loop, which is another name for a 4 to 20 signal, 4 to 20 loop. This is coming from my message, and if I start typing in payload, the prediction is already made for me. So I just need to give this a name. So we'll call it store loop. And we're going to do that again for the other values. So I just link it up, and then I can Control C, Control V to copy that, link it, message payload. I'm going to call this 1%. So hopefully you can see the pattern now. I now have my change nodes all programmed, and I'm going to, rather than having a debug, I'm just going to look in the context memory area. So to find that, it's not across the top here. Maybe if I pull it out, yeah, you can see that it's there, but it's not got enough room to put it all on. So go to context, and we get this view. Now it doesn't update automatically on this screen, even though it is updating in the background as quick as it can. So I have to click the refresh, and you will see here the values updating, distance, level, loop, and percent here. These other ones are memory locations I've been playing with other flows. So I know that's being saved now, so I can use that later on to build my JSON up, ready to push my data into InfluxDB. So the next thing I'd like to do is start looking at visualization. And by default, there are no dashboard nodes here on the left hand side, and there's many dashboard nodes that you can look at. Some of them are simpler than others, and I like to download this one. You can go and have a look at whatever you like, but you can see on here there's quite a few options, inputs and outputs for different visualizations. So we can start doing some control, selecting different screens, forcing values, but we're just going to be focusing on displaying values to start off with. So let's have a look at this one. So this is called Node-RED dashboard. We go back to Node-RED and manage palette. I've already installed it, but I'll show you the process. So if I type in dashboard here, okay, so here it is. This is the one I would recommend. You can click on this arrow and it will take you to the screen you've just seen. It was last updated a month ago, so that's good. You can see it's being used, and I've installed it. Once I've installed it, I can type in dashboard, but it's normally down here at the bottom. And the first one that I'm going to use is gauge. So I can pull my gauge in, and I need to link it to a payload. So if I have a look here, we'll start with distance. So we'll drag that in. I've still got a red triangle. I'm using a gauge. I can use different ones, compass. We'll have a look at these in a minute, so you get a feel. Now our range for distance, don't forget, was 0 to 3 meters. Right? We've got these options for changing the color. If you want to put a warning on the screen, if you want to change the color, you can just click on these and change your color for each one. So we'll make them all the same. Okay. so it's not going to change colour. We've got our scaling units. Now we can mess around with units and everything else. We can give it a label. We'll call this distance. Okay. And then the value, there's a nice little command. So if you can use this vertical line, type in number and :2. That is going to, because we've got a floating point number with a ridiculous amount of decimal points, that number :2 will add 2 decimal places, and rather than putting the units down here, if I put the units outside of these brackets, that will appear on the screen. So if I deploy that, over here now I have another menu I can look at called dashboard. So when we launch this in a minute, you'll see a screen called home, and then within it you have groups. And if I have a look under my groups, this is where I was messing around before. So if you go back to this node, I'm actually going to delete this node now because it's going to cause some confusion. Yep, so all of those other ones have disappeared, and I've just got my distance because all of the other ones were coming from that other node even though it was disabled. So I've got one called distance, and if I deploy that, now when I first used this it got a bit confused. If you want to see the screen, you can click on this little icon here and it will open up the other view, and now I've got a screen called home. I have my indication, so if I start moving this around now I'll have different values, and there's no alarms, it's just purely visualization. I forgot to delete where it said units here, so I put the meters by the side, and I can start playing around with my groups now to tidy things up. So I don't want to call this home because this is going to be called vessel inventory, and this is going to be called vessel 1. So let's go in and edit those to tidy those up. So if I click on here, I'm back on my dashboard screen where it says home. I can edit, and I will call that inventory. I can start playing around with icons as well. I'll come on to how you can start putting icons onto here. We will update that, and then where it says here default, let's edit this, and we will call this vessel 1. Now, because on our input card we can have 4 milliamp inputs and 4 0 to 10 inputs, so theoretically if it's just 4 to 20 we can use we can have 4 measurement points, but there is a way to turn 4 to 20 into voltage relatively easy, which we will touch on another video. We can have it so they collapse, or so I'll show you what it means by that. So if we do display group name, let's do update and deploy. We go back to our screen, do a refresh. We can see here now vessel 1 inventory. As I start building my screen up, I can have more groups, so this is just one group. So what I'm going to do now is add the other measurements, and we will have a look at how we can tidy this up. So here I have my screen, and you can see here something has happened with the milliamp input one. So let's have a look at our flow. I've tidied it up, so you may think that this output is linked to this, but if you pull it down, look, you can see that it's linked, but it's just a way of tidying it up. And here, the milliamp loop, I've purposely kept those red. My scale, I'm going to put 0 to 22, and there's a very good reason for that. Your operating range for your milliamp output is 4 to 20, but you can program fail-safe positions. So during normal operation, the milliamp loop will work between 4 and 20. When the device that's transmitting the 4 to 20 signal thinks it's in error and it's not happy, it will go to a fail-safe condition, and that's either fail-safe high or fail-safe low. So you can force it to go. Normally it's about 3.6 or 3.5. It'll be below 4, or it can be 22 milliamps. So we can play around with this now, and we want the red to come in at 3.9. Let's put something like that, and then anything above 20, really, we can put 21 in there and we can deploy. Now the reason we do that is, one, for failsafe, but if you get an open circuit on the milliamps, it will go to 0. So it's an indication that we're either at 3.5 is fault with the actual device. An open circuit, it means that the device is either blown up, don't know why I'm laughing at that, or somebody's cut the wire. So let's have a look at our screen now, and everything is healthy. It'll be very difficult for me to cause a fault on this, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to remove my wire rather than trying to fault the instrument. So let's do that now. I've gone to 0 milliamps. My distance, don't forget it's the other way around. So now I can do some clever things in the background with this. Rather than just letting it go to 0, I can start programming thresholds that will generate alarms that will appear on the screen, but also I can get it so it will generate an email and send an email message to somebody that the level sensor's failed. So there we have it. We have now pushed our data into global storage, and we've created our first dashboard. And in the next video we will link the data to InfluxDB, so we're pushing this into a database, and then we will start looking at programming some thresholds with a view to sending out some email alarms. But for now, this is part 2 finished. Hope you learned something. If you like what you see, please click the like button. Don't forget to click the notification bell, because part 3 will be coming out soon. But there's other videos for Node-RED, Grafana, InfluxDB. But for now, thanks for listening, and hope to see you again soon.